What's up guys, how you all doing? Welcome to another video. So today we're going to be talking again about the Canon R7. I recently put out my video where I talked about all the different gear that the top pros use. And one of the questions I got asked a few times following that video, I think in the comments of the video, on Instagram when I shared it there as well, was whether or not the Canon R7 would be any good for professional photographers. Well, I've talked a fair bit on this channel about the Canon R7 and shared my thoughts, but you know what I thought I would see if we can specifically look at whether or not the Canon R7 is going to be good for professional photographers. Does it have the specs that a pro photographer would need? Do I think I could use it for my own professional work? And when I'm looking at a camera for professional work, what are the specs that I'm looking for? And does the Canon R7 match those requirements? So let's break it down. Well, the first thing that I would look for, and I've talked about this when I ranked the most important features in a sports camera, for me, my professional sports photography work, I need a camera that is going to be able to keep up and have a fantastic autofocus. And the Canon R7 absolutely meets that requirement. It's supposed to have the same autofocus system as the Canon R6. I use the Canon R6 for my pro photo work and it really is outstanding. I've got no concerns at all with the autofocus system in the Canon R7. I think it would be absolutely fine for my pro sports work. Next up is whether or not it's going to be fast enough. Well, yeah, it seems like it absolutely will. 15 frames per second with the mechanical shutter, 30 frames per second with the electronic shutter. There'll be some people saying, yeah, but the older lenses don't get those same speeds. Well, they do with the electronic shutter, and you'll be surprised a lot of them will still keep up with the mechanical shutter. Yeah, maybe they're not going to get 15 frames per second, but you get 10 or 11 or anything like that, then you're totally fine. I think the speed of that camera and the frames per second going to be absolutely fine for professional sports photography. Okay, what about the sensor size? 32.5 megapixels. Yeah, totally fine. Yes, it's a crop sensor camera, so it doesn't use those megapixels in quite the same way, but it's still 32.5 megapixels. The Canon R6 is 20 megapixels, and I use that just fine. The Canon R3, I think, is 24, so 32.5 in a crop sensor camera is absolutely fine. Plenty of detail in those images, more than enough for pro sports work. Okay, what about the use of lenses? Well, when the mirrorless system for Canon first came out, there was some concern about the availability of lenses. Well, you know what? There's two things to that point. First of all, the RF lens range has really grown now, and you can get pretty much everything you're going to need for sports. I talked in my other recent video about what lenses are you going to need that will be important for sports. Well, for me, a 400mm f2.8, you can get an RF version of that now. A 70-200 f2.8, well, yep, you can get an RF version of that now. Maybe a 24-70 2.8, yep, there's one of those too. And as you get wider, there's a 15-35 f2.8. There's a whole range of lenses. And even more importantly, if you get yourself the RF EF adapter, all of your old lenses work almost flawlessly on the new Canon R7 and R6, the R mirrorless system. I use the adapter with all my lenses on the R6 and they all work flawlessly. No concerns with it whatsoever. Okay, so what about the flip side to that? Where do I think the R7 might not be good enough? Well, the main area that I do have concerns about is low light performance. Now, of course, there'll be loads of people who will be saying, well, yeah, it's a crop sensor camera. Of course, the low light performance is a little bit worse. And yeah, of course it is, and it will be. But that in itself might be the problem. It might be that it isn't good enough image quality when you are shooting at those higher ISO levels, when you're doing things like football under floodlights, evening sports, indoor sports like basketball. That might be the challenge that we do have with the Canon R7. Now, the other question, of course, is the difference between, is it going to be good enough to shoot pro sports, and is it the best choice for shooting pro sports? Well, is it going to be good enough? Yeah, I think it absolutely will be. And I say that from experience, because I used my 7D Mark II to shoot pro sports, so I've got no reason to think that the R7 won't be good enough for that as well. However, we would be kidding ourselves if we said it was the best option. Of course, a Canon R6 is going to be a better option for sports, an R5 and R3, the R1 when it comes out, a 1DX Mark III. There'll be loads of options that probably would be better than the R7 for sports. But you know what? They won't be that much better, and the Canon R7 is going to be something that you can get hold of for not much over £1,000. I think right now on Wex Photography here, I think it's 1,350. So a really affordable camera for an awful lot of specs, loads of which do match pro requirements for sports. Well, you know what? There's one way that we can answer that question a little bit better than I'm doing right now. Some of you guys will be excited to know that I now have an R7 on order. I'm waiting for it to arrive. As soon as it does, I'm going to be shooting some videos and we are going to directly check. The videos I'm planning on doing are going to be the R7 for sports and how to use it for sports and whether or not it's any good. I'm also then going to do a comparison. I'm going to compare it with the R6, and I know loads of you guys are going to say, well, it's not a fair comparison because it's a crop sensor versus a full frame. Yes, it is, but those are two cameras that people want to see compared, so I'm going to do it. And the third one, which I think will be quite an interesting one, is the 7D Mark II compared with the R7. I'm looking forward to that one because, of course, they are both crop sensor cameras. One is kind of the best sort of sports crop sensor camera that Canon used to do in their DSLR range, and now, of course, we've got the mirrorless version. So that's going to be a really interesting comparison. Make sure you guys let me know in the comments below what other comparisons or what other test videos would you like me to do with the Canon R7. Maybe you'd like me to do something about video, maybe you'd like to see it tested for something totally away from sports, landscapes or portraits or whatever. Let me know in the comments below, guys, and I will try to make those videos for you right here on the channel. If you guys did enjoy this video, do me a favour, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. In the meantime, guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next video.